Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Well, hello and welcome to Countryside with Kiri Kermode and Simon Clark. And on this week's programme, a bit of variety again. Kiri, you've been mixing it with monkeys, llamas, tapirs, haven't you? Finding out what's been happening at the park.
Yes, I met up with Kathleen Graham up at the Curragh Wildlife Park and seeing how they've been coping with the recent bad weather.
Yeah, because, that is a designated wetland area, isn't it? And you think to yourself, gosh, there's been rain everywhere else. It must have been having just penguins and water buffaloes and things at the park, but they've coped fairly well by the sounds of it, have they?
They have coped very well. It's terrible wet there, even though it is Curragh land anyway, but the grazing animals have been getting extra feed and they've had trees blown down all over the place, so it's been a big clean-up operation with a lot of volunteers and various staff trying to get it back to normal before the Easter break at the end of March. Yeah,
and Kathleen's so passionate, isn't she, about trying to get the park to, its best, really. But
yes.
She always admits herself, I always want to do that little bit more, but it's whatever you can fit in.
There's a lot of improvements being done at the park, even in the recent 9 or 10 months since I've last been there. They've got some fantastic animals. There's been lots of babies born. They've really gone from strength to strength. It's looking well.
It is. And also, I spoke to Stuart Jakes, the Chief Veterinary Officer for the Isle of Man, with that news that the island's cattle herds have been granted the TB-free status, which is fabulous news because we've had some real downers. We know farmers ourselves, don't we, that it's been really devastating for some of them that have had to suffer the consequences of it.
Oh, this is right. There's some farmers have lost whole herds from TB. Luckily, not so much in the Isle of Man because we don't have the badgers that seem to persist on infecting the cattle, especially on larger farms in the UK. But still, it's touched farmers and neighbours around our parts, and it's one of those diseases that I'm so glad we've got under control. And now with this TB-free status, it's certainly added value to these fantastic livestock herds that we have here on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, and the one thing we've got to be careful, I suppose, is that all the sort of half-known ones are getting sneaked into the Isle of Man as well, isn't it? We've got to keep an eye out.
Oh, this is right. We've got very strict import regulations and rules here, so hopefully this will stay with us now for the coming years.
Yeah, and I was down on the beach. Not quite sunbathing at this time of year. I was out with Bill Dale and the Beach Buddies team because they've just grown from strength to strength and got some great followers, haven't they?
Oh, they really have. I follow them on Facebook and basically they're doing a great job and there's lots of bin bags lying around ready for the bin men to pick up. A real satisfaction to those guys and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, they certainly are. So sit back and enjoy this week's Countryside.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
But first, some good news for the Isle of Man cattle breeders, as the Isle of Man has been granted official TB-free status. I had a chat with the Chief Veterinary Officer for the Isle of Man, Stuart Jakes, to find out how big a news this is.
Well, I think it's excellent news, and it's been many years in the making because we have to find or prove a set of numbers that are very difficult for a small nation like ours. What it'll do is reduce our costs centrally because we won't do less testing. It'll be less hassle for farmers, but better still, there will be no disease for farmers. There will be no losses or significant losses like there have been in the past, and there will be lots of opportunity for sale and for demonstrating the quality of our livestock.
Is it quite a high criteria then, to meet these sort of standards when we've had it in the past?
Well, it certainly is, and that is, one of the benefits of our size and our location is being, our isolation and the fact that we can control what we have within our own border. But against that, we have to prove that a very low percentage of our animals are infected. And because of our very small size, that basically means we have had to eradicate tuberculosis because one case would be too many. One case of local origin, that is.
But the testing regime for it now, Stuart, has technology moved on? Are tests a little bit more sensitive than they used to be as well?
We've been very fortunate in that partway through our eradication programme, the gamma interferon test, which is a blood test, became available. historically, everybody's relied on the skin test, which, although very, very good for saying if something's positive, it really is, it has some limitations on identifying absolutely every animal that was positive, which, of course, has shown how difficult it's been to remove in the likes of England and Wales, as we see that they find it very, very difficult to remove it completely. But when we use the gamma test, which we've used very carefully on farms that have had infection and also religiously on all the animals that come in, we've been able to filter out that small population that have been, I think the general population would say carriers. We would know them by different names, but they basically can bring disease in silently. And that was the problem that we had in the very late 90s and very early 2000s, that we couldn't pick up these animals and they brought disease in and it developed later. Now, with a bit more technology and an awful lot of diligent testing and everybody presenting the animals that needed to be tested, we've managed to identify them all and get rid of them.
Is it one of them diseases that's quite a nasty one for animals, or is it just one of them sort of nuisance ones?
That's a very difficult question because, some of the animals that I've seen that have been badly affected have looked quite normal. The problem is that, obviously, when they look normal, everybody thinks, well, it's not very much of a problem, is it? Really, it looks fine. But you have to roll yourself forward 4 or 5 years and then realise that instead of one animal in the herd that's affected, that maybe when it starts to look ill, the farmer gets rid of it because it's not very productive. You've got 10, 15, 20, 30 of them. And then that will completely destroy the financial viability of the farm. It'll mean that all the animals will have to be removed, and it's an absolute disaster.
What also for the Isle of Man cattle breeders, how big a thing is this to have back on us, really? Is it something that, obviously, it's nice to know that your herd's nice and healthy, but I suppose it's a big thing for people who are trying to sell animals off the island?
It's a huge mark of quality because when you start looking at people trying to buy cattle, particularly within the British Isles, one of the things that would really make you think twice is, what am I going to buy in? And particularly with TB these days, you will find an awful lot of farmers within England and Wales saying, well, if I buy it in, will I ever get rid of it? How much is this going to lock me up? Is it going to damage my trade? If you're a breeder yourself and you buy something in that's diseased, you may not be able to sell something for at least 60, 120 days, if not 6 months, a year, or even more. And that will cause you major, major problems. So buying from a disease-free island will actually allow you to say, right, okay, as far as I can tell, I am buying an animal of the highest disease quality that gives me the lowest risk of any problems in the future. And that's worth quite a lot, both in comfort and in financial terms in the future.
Isle of Man Chief Veterinary Officer Stuart Jakes there telling me about the news that the Isle of Man has been granted that tuberculosis-free status. And fantastic news, that, Kiri, because I think we both know farmers who have been victims of this awful disease that affects cattle and cows in the past, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a terrible thing that's been hanging around for a very long time, and it's great news to hear of the TB-free status. The badgers are causing mass mayhem in the UK with farmers constantly on lockdown, so we're very, very lucky here that we don't have the badgers causing the problems, and this status will hopefully add value to our stock, especially breeding females, that hopefully we can export to the UK for further breeding to these other farms.
And it's just one of them things, I suppose, the general public who are not really involved in agriculture too much, these diseases that not just are going to affect one or two cattle, like if something happens to any other animal, it might be just a one-off, but these sort of diseases can wipe out entire herds, can't they? Oh yes,
even just recently on the news, 45 cows have gone down in one herd out of 120. That's a heck of a loss for that farmer, and he doesn't know whether they'll be clear of on the second test or how it'll go. He can't sell beef from those cattle live. A lot of them have to go for slaughter and just get minimum payments for them. It's a real difficult time for anyone that has any form of disease. It's a terrible thing, and we're very lucky to have this TB-free status.
Yes, indeed, and long may it continue.
Absolutely.
You've been out and about, though, Kiri. I hope you didn't get mingled up with all the animals that are at the Wildlife Park, did you?
No, it was a very good visit. There's a lot happening at the Wildlife Park at the minute. They're getting ready for the Easter Easter break. It's early this year, with it being the end of March. And Kathleen has teams of guys in trying to clear up some of the damage from the previous 3 months. And the animals are looking really well and welcoming the visitors.
And of course, you caught up with the general manager of the Curragh Wildlife Park, Kathleen Graham.
Yeah, I met Kathleen at the penguin enclosure and I asked her how she's been coping with the recent spell of bad weather.
Well, we've had better years. I suppose the fact that it's not been too cold has been a bonus. There's always something positive. But yeah, it has been very wet and windy. The water levels have been higher in the park than I think they've ever been, really. A lot of wet and mushy paddocks, trees coming down. So yeah, there's been easier years.
Has it incurred extra costs and manpower?
There's always a bit of tidying up, trees coming down to be removed or trees that look like they're about to come down. We have to be aware, public are walking around, so you've got to identify trees that are at risk. It looks like this kind of weather pattern is going to be more of the norm, so it does have to make us kind of reevaluate some of the enclosures, how we build them and what species we keep. That may be in the long term that some things aren't suitable for this ground anymore.
I assume with the inclement weather, some of the animals will really have enjoyed the long rainy spells, the mild type of temperatures, but some of the more exotic animals, I'm sure they've been quite depressed and miserable, just like ourselves maybe.
Yeah, well, I think animals are like us. We enjoy a nice day, don't we, when it's a bit of sun, when there's no rain and no wind. And when you do get a day like that in the winter time, you walk around the park, you can almost visibly see the animals' spirits lift. They'll catch that little bit of sunshine and stand in it. And it's the same, I think, for our visitors as well. It seems that when we're open every Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the winter time and during the holidays, it seems to rain whenever we're open, and then it's nicer during the week when we've been closed. But when we do get a nice day, you see people out as well, just grabbing that bit of chance to get out and about and enjoy the fresh air when the weather's not so bad.
Well, we're lucky here today. It's dry overhead. The animals seem quite content. I hear there's been a few new arrivals within the park this summer and into the back end. More recently, a baby otter.
Yeah, we were really pleased to have a baby otter. It's the first time in years. This was a young pair that came to us last year, and they've successfully managed to rear one cub, which is really quite an achievement for their first litter. And hopefully, now that they've got the hang of parenting, they'll produce again later in the year, and it might be a bigger litter because they can have up to 5 or 6. But we've got one otter baby. It's out and about now. Quite often you see it out at feed time. It's about half the size of the parents. They're tiny when they're born, little tiny otters that are covered in fine white hairs. But about 6 to 8 weeks they start coming out, so it's out and about now. We'll need to catch it up and sex it, see what we've got. But it's very important for short-clawed otters to see their siblings being reared. So this little otter, the next litter that the parents have, will learn how to look after a baby and will help look after the sibling. So we could have in a few years quite a large family group. I think that would be really nice.
And I hear the porcupines have been growing, talking about family groups. We've had lots of twins lately.
Yeah, we can't seem to stop the porcupines from breeding. We had 2 born last year. We had 2 born in November, so that's brought the group size up to 6. We've already homed the 2 older ones that were just coming up for a year old, so they've now went to a little wildlife park in Northumbria. So we've got 4 at the moment, but the 2 that were born in November, they've got homes for the springtime. They'll be leaving the park, but I'm sure by then we'll have more babies because they just seem to be producing like rabbits.
And what about the critically endangered gentle lemur? That was a lovely surprise back in the summer. It's nice when an endangered one is able to breed.
Yeah, they are critically endangered and they're quite reliant on the zoo population now for the gentle lemur. They're under threat and their numbers are still dwindling. So we have had a pair here for many years and we'd never actually bred them before, so to have a baby was great. Baby now looks the same size as mum and dad. You can't actually tell which one is the youngster. But no, that was a delight.
And I see just behind us there's a lot of builders building a beautiful new enclosure. Is there somebody special arriving?
Oh yes, silvery gibbons. I think this is a real coup for the park. We're delighted to be getting gibbons. The silvery gibbons are endangered. They're one of the most endangered gibbon species. There's only about 8 zoos in the whole of Europe that have this species of gibbon. Most of those are actually in howlets. They've got the largest population in Europe. But we've been really pleased to be selected to have this species, and we're bringing in a male from America. So it's going to be a new bloodline into the European captive population. The paperwork's all happening at the moment. He's due to go to howlets first, where he'll be paired with his new female. Hopefully that will go well. And then the pair will be transported over here to the new enclosure. And we hope that's going to be around July. But we can never guarantee that, because international paperwork can take time, and then there's the bonding them together and things like that. But we very much hope that they'll be here in time for the summer. Certainly you'll see the big building on the main drive. There's tree work going on to get the island ready, and we'll need to do their climbing frame then, get the interpretation. So fingers crossed it will all be ready for the summer.
Also, there'll be some special events coming up. Easter's early this year. There's Mother's Day. Is the park going to be up and running for those special events?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you're closed in the winter. And we're like, well, we're not really. We're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday and all the holidays. But we're open 7 days a week from the 21st of March, so just a bit before the schools break up here. Mother's Day, we've got the bat group coming in to do some bat boxes. There'll be usual sort of Easter trails and bug encounters during the Easter holidays. But just, you can always check our Facebook page and see what's happening in the park.
Is there any other big projects or plans in the pipeline for the coming summer or the next few years?
Well as the silvery gibbons, we're bit by bit doing up the penguin enclosure. We've got plans now for a new nest site area. It is looking a little scruffy now. We've been gradually improving the penguin enclosure. We did an extension to the beach area last year. We've redone the path in front of it. The next phase is to do the nest areas. We've changed all the pool to salt water, which is much better. Unfortunately, there's more algae in it, but it's much better for the penguins. And once we've got that new nest area done, we'll be looking at redoing the glass and the viewing as well. But these things can cost an enormous amount of money, and so we're doing it as we can, bit by bit, but we're always looking for help and sponsorship.
So Kathleen Graham at the Curragh Wildlife Park in Ballaugh.
Well, when was the last time you were at the park before you went on this trip?
We went in the summertime.
All right.
Took Caesar to see the penguins and what was new there. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it is a marvellous park, isn't it? Because it's just different, and I know we take it for granted over here, and people go, "Oh, it hasn't got any elephants and giraffes and things," but it's got so much more, because it's got them little walks and then paths, and a lot, not just like animals and birds. There's a lot for people who like flowers. I can't think of the name of them now.
No, it's wonderful. There's a lot for people to see, especially the children, with the great play areas they've got there now. But some of the animals are critically endangered, and we're very lucky to have them here on the Isle of Man. And they've got lovely breeding programmes to hopefully help with the populations of these animals and improve them throughout the UK.
She's always, Kathleen's always full of praise as well for her staff, for the loyal staff that are always on hand during these times of crisis, and they've had to do a lot of emergency repairs by the sound of it, haven't they?
There's a lot of work getting done there right now, and some of it is from the storm damage. There's been trees down all over the place, and they're working very hard, the whole bunch of them, to get it all sorted out, ready for the Easter break at the end of March.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, the Beach Buddies have been gathering volunteers to help keep the island's beaches and coasts clean, well, for a few years now. I met them down at the south of the Isle of Man and spoke to one of the leaders of the gang, Bill Dale. Well, Bill, you must be extremely pleased with the turnout here at Spaldwick in particular.
Fantastic. We've got about 30 on the beach today, Simon, and you can see the great thing today is that we've got lots of new people who've turned up, and lots of them are young kids. And how nice that for they go down there all excited with their litter pickers, and you've been down and had a look, and how great that they've got involved. So, I mean, that's the future for something like this. You've got to get the children interested, give them a litter picker which they think is great fun, and also point out that we're here for two reasons, not just to clean the beach, but also to pick up things which are damaging to wildlife.
And that's one of the things I think parents worry about so much nowadays, about taking their kids onto beaches, is glass and sharp objects, things like that, bits of wood with nails in.
I mean, obviously you can pick these things up, and we do encourage people to collect things like that. The biggest problem is probably not at this time of year. It's a little bit when the weather gets a bit warmer and you get idiots going on the beach and having a barbecue, and instead of taking the stuff away with them, they leave the remains of the barbecue, they smash bottles, they'll burn wood and then leave all the nails lying around. So I do understand entirely that families and parents are a little bit wary of beaches at times, but let's not be too negative. The beaches are beautiful, really, and hopefully in the last few years we've made a big difference and picked up lots of these things.
Because many people, and even drilled into the youngsters today, are a lot more rubbish conscious about putting things in bins and making sure people do. But how is it getting on the beaches still?
You know what? It took me a little while to work it out myself. But if you think about it, even if you were to chuck, say, a plastic bottle on. Get off the tram at the top of Snaefell and you chucked a plastic bottle in the side of it and just threw it in the ground, you get the next storm is going to blow it down a little bit further and a bit further, and then in the end it'll get in a stream, and then in the end from the stream it gets into the river, it goes into the river, out to sea and on the beach. So it doesn't matter where you throw a piece of rubbish, it doesn't have to be on the beach. In fact, I would say, looking at the stuff that we pick up off the beaches, I would say 80-90% of it has come from the land.
It's not blown in the air.
Yeah, it's not been thrown on the beach, directly on the beach. A fair bit of it comes obviously off the side of boats, but I would think probably 80-90% is coming down the river and ending up on the beach. So it's anybody, anywhere. It's nothing to do with just being on a beach. It's happening everywhere.
And the amazing thing is I've been down the bottom chatting to a couple of people, I've come back up the top here, and people have just turned up and then give it the all right, Bill, nice to see you, enjoyed that, and away they go, happy as Larry that they've actually just contributed, an hour or so of their time to help.
The one thing that I always underestimate is how much satisfaction everybody gets out of it. I mean, I know I do. As you know, you interviewed me very much years ago when this thing started at Kirkmichael, I think it was. And it was me and a handful of other people, and it eventually ended up just being me for a long time. But what I underestimated was just how many people really care, and more to the point, how much they enjoy doing it. And you do see real tangible results. You go to the beach, it's full of rubbish. An hour later, it's all cleaned up in the back of the truck. We recycle what we can. And what a great job, it's great.
Now, the thing people don't realise as well is that it is a charity, the Beach Buddies, and I'm looking at the trailer here that people are putting these bags in, and the truck you got there.
Yeah.
You're not paying for that out of your own pocket, surely, Bill?
I don't now. I did for a long time, until about a couple of years ago. Registration as a charity in 2014 made a big difference, because all of a sudden it turned us from being a volunteer group into a proper organised charity with trustees, and then we could do fundraising properly, and people have been very kind to us. I mean, it's not easy. There are so many charities around. It's not easy to raise funds, but what we want to do is to try and get this thing self-sufficient. You'll have seen our big orange bins around here and there. We get sponsors to pay for those. It doesn't cost much. It's only cost $1.87 a day. That's a bit of advertising there. And it's great that companies are getting involved in that. We hope to have 50 out by the end of this year. And then, to a large extent, the whole thing will be self-sufficient. What we don't want to do is to be totally reliant on having to raise money and wait for donations, So we're trying to run it as almost like a sort of a small business, really, and so that it does pay for itself. And one day, hopefully, there'll be a legacy to hand over, and it'll be running nice and smoothly without the headache of having to fund vehicles and things, which we had to do in the beginning.
So I found my way down to Spaldwick Beach, one of the Beach Buddy volunteers. Your name?
Pam Jackson.
I hear you're a bit of a regular with the Beach Buddies, Pam.
We go out most weekends in the winter. In the summer there's possibly other things to do, but definitely most weekends in the winter.
And what's the attraction?
Walking along the wild beaches with my dog, looking at the litter and complaining to myself about it. I thought, time to join in, and I think you can make a difference as a group.
And how long have you been involved in it now?
Probably only about 18 months since we retired, but yeah, it's a good thing to do.
How much rubbish have you got today? We're here at Spaldwick today, of course.
Well, I must have in this bag probably 200 small items: polystyrene, fishing twine, degraded plastic. It's cotton buds. I've never seen so many cotton buds. The plastic middles of it, you can get 70 to 80 in an hour.
Is it quite demoralising when you're here thinking, You know, you can clean it up and then a few weeks later it's all back.
It can be demoralising, but then you really need to go out and do it, and it is rewarding. You feel very satisfied when you've got a beach that you've cleaned up.
So I'll let you get on with it anyway. So you're enjoying it to a certain extent. It's a nice day today.
It's lovely.
Moved on a bit further, we're talking to
Bruce Wolfenden,
Elliot Townend, Harris Simpson.
you fellas combining helping out the Beach Buddies charity with something to achieve for yourselves as well.
Yeah, the Duke of Edinburgh.
And what part of the Duke of Edinburgh are you at?
We're at bronze stage at the Duke of Edinburgh at the moment.
How does this link in with the Duke of Edinburgh Awards?
We're doing this for our volunteering section for Duke of Edinburgh, which you have to do 3 months of. So.
And how have you found it? Is it quite eye-opening, the amount of rubbish that's around the Isle of Man beaches?
Yeah, we didn't think there'd be as much rubbish as we would find normally if you just kind of went for a stroll on the beach.
It was quite an awkward one here at Spaldwick, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to carry the bags up that big hill.
Yeah.
But it's amazing there's so many people that are involved in it, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, a lot of people do show up just to clean a beach, which is good support, and shows how much people care about cleaning rubbish up on beaches.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us, and good luck with the rest of your Duke of Edinburgh.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there, Bill Dale from Beach Buddies and some of the people who were involved on the beach cleaning day in a split area down Fleshig, and also Brad Ahead in the Port Erin area off the Isle of Man. Have you been on any of the Beach Buddies cleaning?
No, but I do follow them on Facebook and they do a great job. And also some of the beaches down where we farm, we see the big bin bags all collected up ready for the bin men to come and collect. And they do take an awful lot of rubbish off the beaches.
I know, but it's incredible that in today's day and age, I mean, I think when I was young, there was certainly people throwing litter, chip papers out of the cars. Some of the youth still do it, but I think it's a lot better than it used to be. But you seem to think, how is all this rubbish getting on the shore? Especially out where I live, you know, it's incredible.
It's mostly driftwood where we are, luckily, but sometimes you get a few battered old bottles and things show up. But I think with the fines that are posted around, litter is a thing of the past, maybe, or not so much anyway.
Do you ever check the bottles to see if there's any notes in them saying that you've won £1 million or something?
Oh, I wish.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, there you are, Kerry. Your second countryside done and dusted, from beaches to wildlife parks to talking serious things like tuberculosis. So variety as always.
It's been lovely. It's been very good. It's lovely meeting new people in the countryside.
But there's so much more and so many more people that we can talk to. We've got trees to talk about in coming weeks. We've got the Young Farmers concert coming up, forests, sheep, pigs, anything, as we say. If you've got anything, just let us know, and if it's a good thing for the programme, we'll certainly feature it. So until next week's Countryside, from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kerry Kermode.
We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin, or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.